Hi everybody, it's Loretta. Welcome back to my channel. Okay, so this is part 2 of how to sew a crazy quilt block. So, I went on ahead and finished it, and I just wanted to point out a few things. So there was a piece of fabric right here that I wanted to use that just ended like right here. So I went on ahead and sewed it down and just knew that I was going to have to put this little corner on so that it would cover it up. But you can see what I mean by whatever you use on the outside really is the thing that you don't lose as much of it. Whatever you use closer in, you tend to lose more of. So like I have this big dark spot here, so I will probably put a big lace doily or something here. I sacrificed a lot of this fabric that I really didn't want to sacrifice, but that's the way it goes. Also, the further out you go with your piecing, the harder it is to not have the bulk and the waist, and that's fine. Just cut as much of it away as you can so that when you go to embroider that or whatever, it won't be so much. And if you find that, see, like there's a little piece here. If you find that you can't embroider through that, you can also always just lay down a piece of trim if you've got something that ended up being super bulky. I mean, there are literally no rules to this. So the only thing I would point out is when you do have something like this where I've cut away. Now, you could go in there with a seam ripper and just go ahead and get rid of that if you wanted to take the time to do that. But just remember that if you don't do that, the fabric that you've got on top cannot be sheer. Like you can't use like a fairly thin satin or whatever, because not only will the bump show where the piece of fabric is under there from here, but also sometimes it actually shows through the fabric. So yeah, anyway. So then I trimmed it up with the the edges, and it now measures 10 by 10. So it's a little bit bigger than I was going to do, but I kind of have trouble making things small. Anyway, and I probably, since she's kind of risque right there, I will probably put something here in general. But what else was I going to tell you? I guess that was it. Oh, and I will do a very large basting stitch around the edge, because you want to give yourself enough seam allowance, so you don't want to embroider all the way to the edge, and you definitely don't want to put beads and stuff all the way to the edge or sequins. So I will put like a basting stitch that's about, I don't know, 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch, and I will try not to put anything like beads and sequins too close to that, and then also it will keep the fabrics down. And if you have a fabric that is prone to fraying, you can also just put a little fray check around the edge, because it's going to get lost when you sew it anyway. So I wanted to show you though that this is not the only method of making a crazy patch. So this is a project that I've been working on. I have, how I like to use modern vintage, I guess is the word. So I take old linens that I find and make a new project out of it. So let me see if I can back this up. Nope, that's as far as I'll go. So I have 9 of these, and my grandmother had 9 children. So I am going to, put each one on a block. For each child, I'm going to embroider their names and birth dates, etc. But around the edges, I'm doing this crazy patch in the 1930s reproduction feed sack fabrics. So you can see there's actually no backing on this either. Now, I will actually go in and embroider these. I'm not going to do like heavy embellishments on them because for one thing, it's a 1930s cotton kind of, you know, quilt. So I definitely don't want to overdo it. But I will go in and do embroidery and maybe some lace and stuff, which should be fine, even though it doesn't have a backing. But let me show you real quickly how I did those. I actually just made myself a pattern. So you can see, right, so what I did was I drew this out. You know, I just took a piece of paper and just started drawing at angles or whatever. And then I went and did each one of them separately. Okay, so like this is so hard to explain, but like I traced over this and cut it out, and I traced over this and this, you know, to get the angles right. And then I added a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I kept this so that I would know what order to sew them in, because it's very important. You need to get this edge and this edge so that then this edge can sew. And then you can sew this one to this edge and then this one to this edge of these two pieces. So if you want to, and you could also sew this onto a muslin back. You don't have to do it the way I was doing it. But once you've got this all sewn together, then also, depending on, you know, you can make it bigger than you need, and then you can actually cut it in different places so that you're not repeating the exact same pattern on your quilt. Now this is just, you know, for the border, but you could do, you know, big squares as well. And so you can see here are the pieces that, you know, that I've cut up, and I will sew them together. And in fact, I think I have one in here. Yeah. So, you got to be very careful to keep your pile together, though. So here are the individual pieces that I took from that after I added my, see, here's my 1 inch seam allowance. Make sure that you put on this one which one it is, so that you know how, you know what you're making. Of course, is my hashtags to let me know how many I've actually made. And so here's a piece, you know, before sewing it onto anything. Yeah, so, and I will have to, you know, so you can make crazy patches in other ways. The sew and flip method with a center block seems to be the most popular among crazy quilters nowadays, but it definitely is not the only way. So then I will also show you, I have a friend who lives up in Minnesota. She's in her 80s, and she just, I mean, she just makes blocks all day long. And she donated some to the last Crazy Quilt retreat I went to, and I grabbed some. So I kind of wanted to show you her method here. On these two, she kind of just did strips. I mean, obviously, 1, 2, 3, 4, there are 4 fabrics in this strip, but that's what she did. She just kind of sewed a bunch of stuff together and then cut it in strategic places. This one here also has 1, 2, 3, 4 fabrics in it, and she did not sew it onto a muslin backing. And then this one is also strips. This one over here actually looks like this was part of another project. So, you know, like if she had probably orphan blocks, is what we call them, orphan blocks left over from a regular traditional cotton quilt, because sometimes, you know, you have extras left over. She probably just took that and cut it in strips. So, and she already also started to embellish them, as you can see. This one's pretty heavily embellished. I don't know why she gave up on it. But anyway, and then this one, you know, as opposed to mine, which has the center and goes around. It looks to me as though she just started with this particular patch, sewed these two to it, then sewed this one to it, then added this one, and then added this one, and then probably then just squared it up. I think this is a 9 by 9. Also not on a muslin back, so you can see. Yeah, and then this one she did, and it is much more. It's on, she didn't use muslin, she used an old sheet. And again, she did not do the center and go around. She looks to me like she did these two together. She sewed these two together and then sewed this side on and then this side on. And like these two, you could even sew these together before you started the whole quilt. She's got a pin in here still. And then, let's see, it looks like these two, this one with that, and then this one, and then this one is the way it looks like she quilted it. So, or pieced it. So she has not cut away a lot of her extra fabric, so I will do that before I start embellishing. But yeah, so I mean I grabbed these because I thought, well, it's kind of neat to have somebody else's work, you know, somebody else's, because I would have never thought to put this piece of fabric in here, but it works perfectly. You know, I love other people's choices. So I think that's everything. I hope this helped. If any of you were wanting to try your hand at piecing a crazy block. So like I said, this is 10 by 10. You can probably use it for a pillow or in a fabric book, or, I mean, because you can still trim it down even more, although you can't once I embellish it. So anyway, I am going to embellish this because this is going to be one of the giveaways for my challenge. So yeah, go check out the challenge video, and if you want to see any of my finished crazy quilts, they're all up on, well, they're not all up, but I have videos of several of them, and I will talk to you guys later. Thanks for watching. Let me know if you have any questions. Bye-bye.